Let me ask you something that might shake you. What if I told you that the reason you're still breaking your rules, still losing to the same patterns, still feeling that sick weight in your stomach every time a trade moves against you, has nothing to do with your strategy? What if the problem isn't your entries, your risk management, or your understanding of price action? What if the real enemy has been sitting inside your head this entire time, whispering lies you've mistaken for truth? Because here's what nobody tells you when you first open a trading account. The market isn't designed to break your strategy. It's designed to break you. And until you build a mind strong enough to stand in the fire without flinching, you will never, ever survive this game. Not because you're not smart enough. Not because you didn't study hard enough. But because you haven't yet become the person capable of executing what you already know. I've watched thousands of traders enter this world with the same bright-eyed belief. They think if they just find the right pattern, the perfect indicator, the secret setup that the pros use, everything will click into place. They spend months, sometimes years, jumping from strategy to strategy, convinced that the next YouTube video or the next course will finally be the one that changes everything. And then one day, after another blown account, after another streak of losses that shouldn't have happened, after another moment of staring at the screen, wondering why they keep destroying what they build, something shifts. They realize the truth. The market was never the problem. They were, and that realization, as brutal and humbling as it is the doorway to everything. Because once you stop blaming the charts, once you stop searching for external solutions to internal problems, you can finally begin the only work that actually matters. Building a trader's mind so strong it scares the market. Not because you never lose. Not because you win every trade. But because the market can no longer control you. It can no longer make you panic. It can no longer seduce you into breaking your rules. It can no longer turn you into someone you don't recognize. Let me take you back to a moment I'll never forget. It was 3 years into my trading journey, and I thought I had figured it out. I had a system that worked. I had backtested it. I had proof. On paper, I was profitable. In my mind, I was ready. And for a few weeks, everything went exactly as planned. Green days stacked on top of green days. My confidence grew. I started imagining what I'd do with the money. I started telling people I was a trader, not someone trying to become one. I felt invincible. And then the market did what the market always does to traders who mistake a winning streak for mastery. It humbled me. One losing trade. That's all it took. Just one trade that hit my stop loss. But instead of accepting it, instead of moving on like my plan said I should, something inside me snapped. That loss felt personal. It felt like the market was mocking me. So I did what weak traders do. I revenge traded. I doubled my position size. I told myself I was being aggressive, that I was taking control. But the truth is, I wasn't in control of anything. Fear was driving. Ego was navigating. And I was just a passenger watching myself destroy everything I'd built. By the end of that session, I had given back 2 weeks of profits. Not because my system failed, but because I did. I sat there in the silence afterward, staring at the red numbers, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Shame. Not because I lost money, but because I knew better. I had the knowledge. I had the rules. I had the plan. And I threw it all away the moment my emotions got loud enough. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the session in my head, trying to understand how I could be so disciplined one moment and so reckless the next. And that's when it hit me. I had spent years building a trading system, but I had spent almost no time building the person executing it. I had optimized my entries, but I hadn't optimized my mind. I had rules for the market, but no rules for myself when pressure arrived. And here's the thing most traders never understand until it's too late. The market doesn't care about your strategy. It doesn't care how many books you've read or how many hours you've spent staring at charts. The only thing the market cares about is this. Can you stay calm when everything inside you is screaming? Can you follow your plan when your emotions are begging you to break it? Can you accept a loss without needing to prove yourself in the next trade? Because if you can't, It doesn't matter how good your system is. You will find a way to sabotage it. Every single time. Think about it. How many times have you entered a trade perfectly, managed it correctly, and then, at the last second, moved your stop loss because you couldn't handle being wrong? How many times have you sat on your hands all week waiting for your setup, only to force a trade out of boredom on a Friday afternoon? How many times have you told yourself you'd only risk 1%, but when the setup looked too good to pass up, you quietly doubled it? Telling yourself this one time doesn't count. These aren't strategy problems. These are you problems. And until you face that, until you stop pretending the market is doing something to you and accept that you're doing it to yourself, nothing will change. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, I get it. Mindset matters, but how do I actually fix it? How do I stop being emotional? How do I build this so-called strong mind? And that's the question that separates the traders who make it from the ones who quit. Because the answer isn't sexy. It's not a 3-step formula. It's not something you can buy in a course. The answer is this. You build a strong mind the same way you build a strong body. Through consistent, uncomfortable, unglamorous repetition. Through doing the hard thing when every part of you wants to do the easy thing. Through showing up even when no one is watching, even when there's no reward, even when it feels pointless. Let me tell you about a man who understood this better than almost anyone. His name was David Goggins, and if you don't know his story, listen closely, because it's the blueprint for what we're talking about. Goggins wasn't born tough. He wasn't born disciplined. He was born into chaos, abusive household, poverty, racism, learning disabilities. By the time he was in his 20s, he was overweight, working a dead-end job, spraying for cockroaches, going nowhere. He had every excuse in the world to stay exactly where he was. And then one night, he saw something on TV, a documentary about Navy SEAL training. And something inside him woke up, not hope, not inspiration, something darker, a refusal to accept that his life would be defined by his circumstances. He decided right there that he was going to become a Navy SEAL. The only problem, he was almost 300 pounds, and to even qualify for training, he needed to lose over 100 pounds in less than 3 months. Doctors told him it was impossible. Friends told him he was crazy. His own mind told him to quit every single day. But here's what Goggins understood that most people never will. The voice in your head that tells you to stop, that tells you it's too hard, that tells you you're not built for this, that voice is a liar. And the only way to silence it is to prove it wrong. Over and over and over again. So he started running. 4 in the morning, every single day. His body screaming, his knees aching, his lungs burning. He wasn't running because he enjoyed it. He was running because he refused to let weakness win. And every time he wanted to quit, every time that voice whispered that he could start tomorrow, he did 1 more mile, 1 more lap, 1 more step. Not because it felt good, but because that's where mental toughness is built. In the exact moment you want to stop, but keep going anyway. 3 months later, he walked into SEAL training weighing 100 pounds less. And he didn't just pass. He became one of the toughest endurance athletes on the planet. Not because his body was special, but because his mind refused to surrender. Now, you might be wondering, what does this have to do with trading? Everything. Because trading is the same test, just in a different arena. The market doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you've had a bad week. It doesn't care if you're scared or frustrated or doubting yourself. The only question it asks is this. When pressure comes, do you execute your plan, or do you fold? And if you fold, if you let your emotions override your discipline, the market will remove you. Not because you're incapable, but because you haven't been forged yet. Here's a truth that will make you uncomfortable. You are not weak because you lack knowledge. You are weak because you avoid discomfort. Every time you check your trade before your target is hit, you're avoiding the discomfort of uncertainty. Every time you skip journaling, because you don't want to face your mistakes, you're avoiding the discomfort of honesty. Every time you overtrade, because sitting on your hands feels unbearable, you're avoiding the discomfort of patience. And every single one of those avoidances is a small surrender, a quiet agreement with weakness, a vote against the person you say you want to become. Strong traders don't avoid discomfort. They run toward it. They understand that growth only happens in the space between what you can do and what you think you can't. When you're sitting in a losing trade and every cell in your body is screaming to close it early, that's not a moment to panic. That's a training session. When you want to enter a trade that doesn't meet your criteria but looks so tempting, that's not a moment to break your rules. That's a test. When you have a losing streak and doubt creeps in, telling you maybe you're not cut out for this, that's not a moment to quit. That's the exact moment that separates the traders who build something real from the ones who disappear. And here's what nobody tells you about those moments. They never get easier. You just get stronger. The discomfort doesn't go away. You just stop letting it make decisions for you. The fear doesn't disappear. You just stop letting it control your actions. The doubt doesn't vanish. You just stop listening to it. That's what a strong mind looks like. Not the absence of emotion, but the refusal to let emotion become the boss. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. When was the last time you kept a promise to yourself? Not a promise to someone else, a promise to you. When was the last time you said, I'm only taking setups that meet my criteria, and you actually did it for a full week? When was the last time you said, I'm going to journal after every session, and you followed through even on the days you didn't feel like it? When was the last time you set a rule and respected it? Not because someone was watching, but because you decided it mattered. If you're struggling to answer that question, you found your problem. Because here's the thing about self-discipline. It's not built through big, dramatic moments. It's built through tiny, unsexy decisions that no one applauds. Waking up when your alarm goes off instead of hitting snooze. Closing your platform when you've hit your daily loss limit, even though you're convinced the next trade will turn it around. Walking away from a setup that doesn't meet your rules, even though you're bored and want action. These aren't glamorous. No one gives you a trophy for them. But they accumulate, and over time, they form something unbreakable. A quiet belief that you keep your word to yourself. And a trader who keeps their word to themselves is very, very hard to break. Let me tell you what happens when you don't have that foundation. You become a reactor. The market moves, you react. You see a setup, you react. You hit a loss, you react. You're not trading. You're being traded. You're a puppet, and the market is pulling the strings. And the worst part, you know it. You can feel it happening in real time. You watch yourself break your rules, and even as you're doing it, a part of you is screaming, stop, this is a mistake, but you can't. Because in that moment, the emotion is louder than your discipline. And when emotion is louder than discipline, you lose. Every time. But here's the beautiful, brutal truth. You can change this. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Right now. Today. This moment. Because building a strong mind doesn't require some massive transformation. It requires one decision. One action. One moment where you choose discipline over comfort. And then another. And then another. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to stop breaking one rule. Pick one. Just one. Maybe it's, I don't move my stop loss. Maybe it's, I don't trade without a clear setup. Maybe it's, I don't revenge trade after a loss. Pick one and guard it like your life depends on it. Because in trading, it does. And when you feel the pull, when that voice says, just this once, it's fine, you pause. You take a breath. You remember that every single time you choose discipline over emotion, you're not just protecting your account. You're building the person who deserves to succeed. You're training your mind to trust you. And when your mind trusts you, when you've proven to yourself over and over that you keep your promises, something shifts. The market stops feeling like a battle. It starts feeling like a job. You show up, you execute, you leave. No drama, no emotional roller coaster. Just cold, calm, consistent execution. Now, I want to talk about something most traders are terrified to admit. The fact that they're not just fighting the market. They're fighting themselves. And the version of themselves they're fighting is the one that's been running the show for years. The one that needs instant gratification. The one that can't sit still. The one that needs to be right. The one that takes losses personally. That version of you is strong, it's had years of practice. And it's not going to give up control without a fight. Every time you try to change, that old version shows up. It whispers in your ear. It tells you this is too hard. It tells you one more trade won't hurt. It tells you the rules don't apply this time. And if you're not ready for that voice, if you haven't prepared for it, you'll listen. You'll believe it. And you'll go right back to the patterns that have been keeping you stuck. But if you know it's coming, if you expect it, you can name it. You can say, oh, there it is, that's the old version trying to take control. And you can choose not to listen. This is the war every serious trader has to win. Not the war against the market. The war against the weaker version of yourself. And you win that war the same way you win any war. Through small victories. Through holding the line when it's hard. Through refusing to surrender even when it feels easier to quit. Most traders lose this war because they expect it to be won in one big battle. They think one day they'll wake up and suddenly they'll be disciplined. But that's not how it works. Discipline is built in the margins. In the tiny moments when no one is watching and nothing is at stake except your integrity with yourself, let me paint you a picture. It's been a rough week. You've had 3 losing trades in a row. All of them were valid setups. All of them hit your stop. You followed your plan perfectly, and you still lost. Now it's Friday afternoon. You're sitting at your desk. The market is slow. There's no clear setup, but you're frustrated. You're down for the week, and something inside you is screaming that you need to get it back. You see a trade that's almost there. It's not quite your setup, but it's close. Close enough, you tell yourself. And in that moment, you have a choice. The old version of you takes that trade. It convinces you that you've earned it, that you deserve a win, that the market owes you. And maybe you get lucky and it works. But more likely, it doesn't. And now you're not just down for the week. You're down and you broke your rules. You've reinforced the pattern that's been destroying you. You've taught your brain that when things get hard, discipline is optional. But the new version of you, the one you're trying to become, makes a different choice. You feel the pull. You acknowledge it. And then you close your platform. You walk away. You accept that this week was a loss, and that's okay. Because you kept your integrity. You didn't betray yourself. And that matters more than any single trade ever could. That moment right there, that's where transformation happens. Not in the big wins. Not in the perfect trades. But in the unsexy, unglamorous moments when you choose who you want to be over what you want to feel. And if you can stack enough of those moments together, if you can prove to yourself again and again that you're capable of doing the hard thing, something incredible happens. You stop being afraid of yourself. You stop worrying that you'll blow up your account because you've proven you won't. You stop second guessing your plan because you've built trust in your ability to execute it. And when that happens, the market changes, not actually, but in how you experience it. The volatility that used to terrify you becomes just noise. The losses that used to wreck you become just data. The winning trades that used to make you euphoric become just confirmation that you're executing correctly. You stop riding the emotional roller coaster because you've stepped off the ride. You're no longer attached to outcomes. You're attached to process. And when you're attached to process, you become very, very dangerous. Not to others, but to the old patterns that used to control you. Here's something I need you to understand. The market will never stop testing you. It will never stop trying to pull you into emotional reactions. That's its nature. It doesn't do it on purpose. It's not personal. It's just what happens when millions of participants are making decisions driven by fear and greed. The chaos isn't going away. But your response to it can change. And when your response changes, everything changes. Think about the strongest traders you know or have heard of. The ones who've survived decades in this game. Do you think they have some secret strategy that never loses? Do you think they've found a way to avoid pain and drawdown and difficult stretches? Of course not. What they have is something far more valuable. They have a mind that doesn't break under pressure. They've been tested so many times that the tests don't shake them anymore. They've lost enough that losing no longer feels like the end of the world. They've won enough that winning no longer feels like validation. They've simply become immune to the emotional manipulation that destroys 90% of traders. And you can become that too. Not because you're special, not because you have some gift, but because you're willing to do what most traders aren't. Face yourself. Honestly. Brutally. Without excuses. Most traders spend their entire careers running from that mirror. They blame the market. They blame the broker. They blame the news. They blame anything except the person staring back at them. And as long as you're running, you can't grow. Because growth requires honesty. And honesty requires looking at the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. So let me ask you directly. What's the pattern you keep repeating? What's the mistake you keep making even though you know better? Is it overtrading when you're bored? Is it moving your stop loss when you're scared? Is it sizing up when you're on a winning streak? Is it revenge trading after a loss? Is it taking trades that don't meet your criteria because you don't want to miss out? Whatever it is, name it. Write it down. Look at it. Because until you acknowledge it, you can't change it. And here's the hard part. Acknowledging it isn't enough. You have to commit to stopping it. Not trying to stop it. Not hoping you'll stop it. Actually stopping it. And that means when the moment comes, when you feel that familiar pull, you have to do something different. You have to interrupt the pattern. You have to prove to yourself that you're serious. Because your subconscious doesn't believe words. It believes actions. And every time you say you're going to change, but then do the same thing, you're programming yourself to not trust yourself. You're teaching yourself that your word means nothing. But every time you feel the pull and resist it, every time you want to break your rule but don't, you're sending a different message. You're saying, I'm in control here. I make the decisions. Not my emotions, not my fears, not my ego. Me. And when you send that message enough times, your mind starts to believe it. And when your mind believes it, everything gets easier. Not because the market gets easier, but because you get stronger. Now, I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. The role of pain in this process. Because pain is inevitable. If you're trading, you're going to experience pain. Losing trades will hurt. Drawdowns will hurt. Missing opportunities will hurt. Watching other traders succeed while you struggle will hurt. That pain is part of the price of admission. But here's where most traders go wrong. They resist the pain. They fight it. They tell themselves it shouldn't be happening. And in that resistance, pain transforms into something worse. Suffering. Pain is clean. It's sharp. It passes. Suffering is what happens when you add a story to the pain. When you make it mean something about you. When you turn a losing trade into evidence that you're not cut out for this. When you turn a drawdown into proof that you'll never make it. That's suffering. And suffering is optional. You don't have to suffer just because you're in pain. You can feel the pain, acknowledge it, and let it pass without making it mean anything about your worth or your future. Strong traders understand this distinction. They know that losses hurt, but they don't let that hurt become a story about their identity. They don't say, I'm a bad trader because I lost. They say, I had a losing trade. That's it. No drama, no spiral, just a fact. And that ability to separate the event from the story is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Because when you stop adding stories to your pain, pain loses its power over you. It becomes just sensation. Just information. Just part of the process. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop resisting pain is the moment it stops controlling you. When you accept that losses are part of trading, losing no longer devastates you. When you accept that drawdowns will happen, they no longer shake your confidence. When you accept that the market owes you nothing, you stop feeling betrayed when things don't go your way. Acceptance doesn't mean you like it. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're dealing with reality as it is, not as you wish it would be. And traders who deal with reality always outlast traders who fight it. Let me tell you what happens when you build this kind of mind. When you've done the work, when you've proven to yourself again and again that you can stay disciplined under pressure, you start to notice something strange. The market stops feeling like an opponent. It starts feeling neutral. It's just doing what it does, moving, fluctuating, creating patterns. And you're just responding, calmly, methodically, without attachment. You're no longer trying to conquer the market. You're just participating in it. And that shift from warrior to participant is when everything clicks. You stop forcing trades because you no longer need the market to validate you. You stop revenge trading because you no longer take losses personally. You stop overtrading because you're no longer afraid of missing out. You've built something inside yourself that's more important than any single trade. You've built trust. Trust that you'll follow your plan. Trust that you'll respect your limits. Trust that even when things get hard, you won't abandon yourself. And when you have that trust, you don't need the market to behave. You just need yourself to execute. And that's a game you can actually win. So here's what I want you to do. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, I want you to make a decision. A real one. Not a wish, not a hope, a decision. Decide that from this moment forward, you're going to build a mind strong enough to handle whatever the market throws at you. Decide that you're going to stop blaming external factors and start taking full responsibility for your results. Decide that you're going to stop lying to yourself about why you broke your rules. Decide that you're going to keep one promise to yourself every single day, no matter how small. Because here's the truth. You don't need a new strategy. You don't need a new indicator. You don't need more knowledge. You need to become someone who can execute what you already know. And that transformation doesn't happen through information. It happens through action. Through doing the hard thing when you don't feel like it. Through staying disciplined when discipline feels impossible. Through showing up for yourself when no one else is watching. The market doesn't fear loud traders. It doesn't care about ego or bravado. The only thing that makes the market hesitate is a trader who no longer reacts emotionally. A trader who can't be lured into bad decisions. A trader who can't be scared out of good ones. A trader who's been tested enough times that the tests don't work anymore. That trader is rare. That trader is valuable. That trader survives. And you can become that trader. Not because it's easy, but because you refuse to stay the person you've been. Because you're willing to face the discomfort of change. Because you understand that the only way out is through. So start today. Start with one decision, one action, one kept promise, and then tomorrow do it again. And the day after that, and the day after that. No one will notice at first. No one will applaud. But you'll know. You'll feel yourself getting stronger. You'll feel the market's grip on your emotions loosening. You'll feel yourself becoming someone you respect. And that feeling, that quiet confidence that comes from keeping your word to yourself, that's worth more than any winning trade. Because winning trades come and go. But the person you become in the process of building discipline, that stays with you forever. The path isn't crowded. Most traders will never walk it. They'll keep searching for shortcuts. They'll keep blaming the market. They'll keep hoping that someday, somehow, it'll all just click without them having to change. But you're different. You're still here. You're still listening. And that tells me something. You're ready. Maybe you don't feel ready. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you doubt whether you can actually do this. But none of that matters. Because readiness isn't a feeling. It's a decision followed by action. And you can make that decision right now. Build a trader's mind so strong it scares the market. Not through aggression, not through risk, but through unshakable discipline. Through emotional control. Through a refusal to let pressure turn you into someone you're not. The market will test you. It will push you. It will try to break you. And when you stand firm, when you execute your plan despite the fear, despite the doubt, despite the discomfort, the market will learn something about you. You can't be broken. You can't be shaken. You can't be removed. And when the market learns that, everything changes. Not because the market changes, but because you already have.